Hello, lovely friend. I am Dr. Mary Barson.
And I'm Dr. Lucy Burns.
We are doctors
and weight management and metabolic health experts.
And this is the Real Health and Weight Loss Podcast.
Hello, lovelies. We are super excited to be bringing you this series in menopause where we're interviewing guests on their expert subject regarding perimenopause, menopause, and beyond. As always, any information in this podcast is just considered general advice, and we would urge you to seek medical attention if you have any concerns about your health. If you're interested in exploring the symptoms of menopause or perimenopause, we have a checklist which you can download at our website, rlmedicine.com/checklist, or as always, you can click the link in the show notes. Thanks, lovelies. Enjoy this series. Hello, lovely friends. Dr. Lucy here today, and I am a bit lonely. I'm without any friends. No Dr. Mary, no special guest, just me. But I thought it was important to record this podcast as we end October, which is Menopause Awareness Month. And I have just come back from the World Congress of Menopause run by the International Menopause Society. And luckily for me, it was in my hometown of Melbourne. So I've just had 5 glorious days connecting with some of our incredible guests who you've already heard and just soaking in all the expertise. And I wanted to share a couple of really important takeaways with you. So the first thing that I wanted to share, and it is a mantra that you've heard us say a variation of, which is that the management of menopause and perimenopause, and they are 2 distinct things, I will go through them. There is no one size fits all. There is no one thing that works for every woman, and there is something for everyone. So what I thought I'd talk about quickly, just to remind you, so perimenopause is the time leading up to menopause, and it can start, as early as your late 30s. It's unusual, but it can start that early. More likely to start mid-40s. And it can go for, anywhere up to 10 years, but it's more likely to maybe be 3 or 4 years. And it is the time of hormonal upheaval. So hormones go up and down. And this is because our ovaries are coming to the end of their life, as in the eggs that women produce that are there from when they were a fetus, they're running out. And as they run out, then we get different levels of hormones, and those hormones can fluctuate day to day, hour to hour. And hormones, as we all know, have a profound effect on our body. And so women can experience incredible symptoms that vary from day to day. So they're not consistent. And I think that is the thing that causes the most distress. Sometimes if you know what's coming, you can manage it. But when things change from day to day, it can feel like you're running blind. So we need to help women through this phase. And up until recently, hormone replacement therapy was really, really on the outer and considered harmful. And most women were told they couldn't use it. On top of that, many of the symptoms that women were experiencing and still experience were dismissed and, trivialized. And this has come out actually since our last week's recording, which we did on menopause in the workplace, where we've had hundreds of emails from women saying that, yes, this was me and I didn't know. I thought I was just losing my mind. I thought I was becoming incompetent. I had lost my confidence. So a lot of these symptoms that are really debilitating 2 things for you to know. 1, they can be treated, and 2, they're not permanent. So you're not losing your mind. You're not going crazy. There is light at the end of the tunnel. So that's the kind of perimenopause upheaval period. And as you've heard over the past few months from our guests, symptoms range from, obvious hot flushes and sleep disturbance and night sweats. They're the standard, what we call vasomotor symptoms. But then there's the cognitive symptoms, which are things that are in our brain. So brain fog, word finding difficulties, memory loss. And again, they're often not permanent. So you would have heard from we had Anne Unkerstein in, and she's a memory expert, and she said that, yes, that often improves. So huzzah for that. And then we've got musculoskeletal symptoms of joint pains, muscle aches, all the itises. So the capsulitis, adhesive capsulitis of shoulders, all of those things come in that perimenopause period. And they're often improved with a combination of things. So again, it's never just one thing. A combination of things like lifestyle options. So again, just focusing on nutrition, it's very hard to get good sleep if you don't actually go to bed. So making sure that you go to bed on time. Then we look at things that are, beyond that. And for many women, that is using MHT, or as it was called, HRT. And, to emphasize again, there are lots of different regimes, lots of different doses, and it's about finding the right regime for you and sometimes giving it a go. Now, that's the perimenopause bit. Moving into the menopause bit. So menopause is when the periods are finished. That's the end of it. There's no more upheaval, so to speak. But many women still experience symptoms. So it's not like they necessarily stop. For some women they do, but for many they don't. Many women still have hot flushes well after their periods have stopped. And it's important that as medical practitioners we recognise that. And we don't say to somebody, oh my God, it's too long. You're too old to be still having those. Or conversely, you're too young to be experiencing those symptoms. We need to listen to and believe our patients. And so the thing that we know, though, is that after the menopause period, there is multiple things that happen to women's bodies. And the three things that I want to remind us to talk about are bone health. So we lose bone mass and develop osteoporosis post-menopause. That's one. The second one is our metabolic health. My love, Dr. Mary's love. We love to help women with their metabolic health. And for many women, their metabolic health was fine until they transition through menopause. For some women, their metabolic health is not so flash to begin with. And then they go through menopause and it becomes a whole lot worse. And I'm coming back to that. And the third little thing that I just want to talk about is something called the genitourinary syndrome of menopause. And that is really around women's pelvic organs, which are all highly estrogen dependent. And I'm going to come back to that. So thinking about bones, we did do an episode on bones, and I'm just going to summarize that your options for bone management, again, if you don't have osteoporosis, then you can maintain your bone mass with regular weight-bearing exercise. So that's not just walking, but often a little bit of jumping, or for some people it might be walking with a weighted vest. It's a tiny bit of stomping, if you like. So weight-bearing exercise along with muscle strengthening, because the muscle and the bone, they're really, they're united. They're not separate entities, so to speak. If you have osteoporosis or osteopenia, then really the gold standard is looking now at MHT as your management and working, again, obviously all of these need to be done in consultation with your doctor, because there are still some women that can't take or don't want to take hormone replacement therapy, and that's their prerogative. What we want to do is we give women all the options. Everything's on the table, and they need to then choose based on what suits them, their lifestyle, their beliefs, but they need to be well informed with accurate information. And unfortunately, that hasn't been happening for a long time. So that's the bones bit. Metabolic health, my love, as you know. So we know that estrogen is highly protective for women's metabolism and their heart and brain health. So estrogen keeps our insulin sensitive. So it keeps our bodies insulin sensitive, or at least improves it. So for many women where they were what we call metabolically flexible, i.e. they had normal levels of insulin, they were able to metabolize get their energy using both glucose and their fat stores. They transition through menopause, they become more insulin resistant and suddenly can't access their fat stores because, as you all know, you've heard us say this before, high circulating levels of insulin in our blood turns off our fat burning. We cannot access our fat stores, and so we can't use that for fuel. And so we're left then just with using glucose, and we don't have big stores of that, so we become tired and hungry. Women put weight on around their middle related to insulin resistance. And then we get into this little vortex that once you develop visceral fat fat in your organs, in your liver, in your pancreas, that then perpetuates the insulin resistance. So it's a little bit of chicken and egg. High circulating insulin causes fat to be stored around our organs. Fat stored around our organs, in particular in our liver, causes insulin resistance. So that's unhelpful. And high levels of insulin, not only do they stop us accessing our fat stores, so we start, developing central obesity or central adiposity, but it also affects the way our cells work. So right down at that very basic mitochondrial level. So your mitochondria, if you'll remember, we've gotten quite a few podcasts on this. The mitochondria are they're in your cells, in every single cell, tiny, I like to think of them as tiny furnaces. They're like your energy, your batteries for your body. And when insulin resistance comes along, they don't function as well either. So again, you're tired, your body, it's like it's an 8-cylinder car running on 4 cylinders. It's just putting along. So we really, really want to be able to improve that. And I'll talk to you a little bit about that in a minute. And then the third thing that I just want to talk briefly about is something called GSM, genitourinary syndrome of menopause. And what this is that, as I was saying to you, all of our pelvic organs, all of our sexual reproductive organs have buckets and buckets of estrogen receptors, and they're all what we call estrogen dependent. So this includes the vagina, the labia, vulva, all of the areas around there are all estrogen dependent. And what that does is it keeps the tissues plump. And when we have plump tissues around there, then the skin has strong integrity. The vagina actually has its own microbiome. So you've heard us talk about the gut microbiome. In fact, we have a brilliant podcast coming up next week about the gut microbiome again. But the vagina has its own microbiome. And we know when it's not in balance, that's when women get things like thrush, which is a candida infection, or something called BV, which is a bacterial vaginosis, which is just overgrowths of certain bacteria in there. It's really, really important. The whole area down there, estrogen dependent. And the thing about it is that when the tissues are not robust like they used to be, well, that's when women get things like prolapses. So yes, you can get a prolapse post-childbirth, but you can also find that you suddenly develop a prolapse post-menopause, and that's unpleasant. Women also develop things like urge and stress incontinence, which again gets worse after menopause. It's not sounding great, is it? But there's one amazing thing that just about every woman can benefit from, and that is what we call vaginal estrogen. So topical vaginal estrogen. Now, interestingly, one of the things that I learned, and this is just a little pearl, like an example of the nuance that's going on here, is that urgency. So, some women have urgency, some women progress on to have urge incontinence. And it's the thing of like suddenly you're just walking along, all of a sudden you're busting. The commonest one is, the latch key. So you're coming along, walking to your front door, and all of a sudden, as soon as you put your key in, you're busting. This can happen to women all over the place, and their brain will develop little triggers, and it's really hard to hold on. It can be really debilitating, and holding on in itself it's not socially kind of easy to suddenly be crossing your legs and, you might be giving them a lecture or something. So what we do know is that topical vaginal estrogen improves that. And interestingly, and again, this is a little nuance, systemic estrogen, so whether you take that through a patch or a gel or even a tablet, that will make urge incontinence worse, which doesn't quite make sense, but that's what the research is showing. So little nuances like that, that was a little pearl of wisdom that I took away from that. So if you have urgency and you're on oral or topical estrogen and you're not using a vaginal estrogen, then it might be worth a chat with your doctor. So the thing about all of this is that things are still coming out in the research, and what's happening is that symptoms that were previously dismissed as being nothing much are now being, women are being heard, women are being listened to. Things like brain fog, it's not that you're stupid, it's not that you've got no intelligence, it's just that, again, a combination of estrogen, which is their brain receptors, but also insulin. Again, insulin resistance. We know that people who have insulin resistance, their cognition is not as sharp as it used to be. There's stuff we can do. That's the whole point. It's not that you can just go, oh, well, God, you're just, dithering old woman. You're not. There's stuff we can do. And this is, of course, the thing that Dr. Mary and I love showing people, love teaching people. We absolutely passionate about improving insulin resistance. Now, we say this a lot. We really do. But there's lifestyle measures that you can take. And I guess the thing that I was heartened by at this symposium, at this conference, was that almost every speaker said that you need to do lifestyle. You need to look at lifestyle factors. We need to look at things that women are doing, things that we can change. And we need to look at, do they need hormones or do they need other things other than hormones? And again, there's a whole heap of medications that are outside the scope of this potty to talk about, but there's lots and lots that we can do to improve the situation. And I know that there are people out there who think that, well, it's natural and we just need to go through it. But childbirth is natural, and two things happen. Women often need help in childbirth because for some women, without medical intervention, they would die, and that's unhelpful for everybody. But also, women have medication and pain relief in childbirth. Not everybody, but some women do, and there's no shame in that. Pregnancy, there are some women who breeze through pregnancy, and there are other women who are hospitalized with morning sickness or hyperemesis gravidarum. Everybody is different, and just because one woman breezes through menopause or perimenopause doesn't mean that that is the standard that every other woman should be held to. What we want to do, though, is give women choice. We at Real Life Medicine are pro-choice. There is no one size fits all. There is something that will work for everybody and nothing that will work for everybody, if that makes sense. So as part of that, this is why we are passionate about lifestyle medicine, and I've talked about the 4 S's. I've recently added 2 more. I will remind you of the 4 S's. So the 4 S's: sustenance, which is really nutrition. And as you know, we do low carb nutrition, and we do that because low carb is a powerful lever to improve insulin resistance. It gives your pancreas a rest. We prioritize protein because most women undereat protein, and we need protein for just about every cell in our body. So obviously muscle, but proteins also form the basis of all our enzymes, our hormones, all of our skin, joints, bones, they're all proteins. So we definitely need protein. So sustenance, we know stress management is important. And I'll tell you what, I was so excited to see a slide that talked about the effect of cortisol on weight management. We've talked about it a lot, but it is always good to have it validated at an international conference. So there is absolutely no doubt that excessive stress increases insulin resistance. It increases central weight gain. And remember that the way we need to learn to manage stress, it's not the absence of stressors that makes stress, that is stress management. It is a skill set. We teach it all the time. We talk a lot about hypnosis, meditation, tapping, journaling, breathing, counseling, CBT, something called cognitive behavioral therapy, and DBT. All of these are stress management techniques. We talk about, obviously, strength training, okay? And the reason for that is that muscle is your metabolic organ. The more muscle you have, the more sensitive your body is to insulin. So the less insulin resistant you are. We talk about sleep. Again, sleep is your superpower, and I understand in the perimenopause period it can be hard. There are lots of times in our life where sleep is tricky. Raising young children, sleep is tricky. When we're stressed, sleep is tricky. I get that. But there is also a large proportion of us that just don't go to bed. We sit up all night watching Netflix. We scroll on our phone. We drag ourselves into bed at midnight and then get up at 6 o'clock and wonder why we feel exhausted all the time. So the first step is to go to bed a bit earlier and to really prioritize and value your sleep. There's interventions, obviously, for other sleep disturbances. And we do know that people need things like CPAP machines if they have sleep apnea. Again, night sweats can be improved with hormone replacement therapy. There's all sorts of things that we can do to improve the situation, but step one, go to bed. And then I'm just going to add in a bit of sunshine. And again, having just come back from a glorious holiday in the sun, I can tell you sunshine is helpful. We are circadian beings. We have circadian rhythms. We all know that. We are, as humans, supposed to be awake in the day and be asleep at the night. Unfortunately, some of us have to work night shift, and that's just the way our society is set up. If you work in health, in hospitality, police, fire brigade, there's many, many jobs that require humans to be awake at night. And I'm going to tell you, we know that that does have health effects. We know that night shift workers have increased rates of cancer. We know that night shift workers have increased rates of obesity, of stress. There's a million things. So if you are lucky enough to not have to work at night, then please get up early, go outside, even if it's just for 10 minutes, as soon as you can, and get some morning sunlight. It is very, very good for you. Vitamin D, super good for you. And then social connection. And again, I've just come back from a glorious holiday with 2 other couples. So there were 6 of us, and gosh, we had fun. We laughed, we read books, we played cards. Like, it was just wonderful. So deep, meaningful connections. You don't need hundreds of friends, but everybody does need a couple of good friends. So lovelies, they're the successes. Successes for success. We have spoken about those before. So as you know, at Real Life Medicine, we are in the business of looking after women. We do see men, of course, as well. So I know we spend a lot of time talking about women, and of course this menopause series relates largely to women's health, which is indeed a men's issue as well. Okay, women look after their menfolk, and menfolk need to look after their womenfolk. It is a societal thing that we should know about. A couple of little offerings from us. If you are going through perimenopause and you have hot flushes in particular, and you have something that has been coined menorage, so you're irritable, Okay, you find yourself snapping and getting cranky, or that the rage can just come upon you feeling like a volcano, and you're having trouble with your sleep, well, then we have created a little hypnosis bundle specifically for those 3 issues: sleep, hot flushes, irritability / meno rage. And you can check those out on our website at rlmedicine.com/feel-better. And that link to that is, of course, in the show notes. What I want to finish with, lovelies, is just a little thing to think about. If you're premenopausal or perimenopausal, it is time to get your metabolic health in order now. It is time to kind of approach menopause almost, match fit, if you like, because it will get worse. It honestly will. And that's just a fact in life. There's nothing we can do about that per se. If you are postmenopausal, and I know that a lot of you who listen to us are, I know we have lots of women who listen to us in their 50s, 60s, 70s and beyond. And for that, we are extremely grateful. And I think that for many women, particularly 60s, 70s, 80s, you are underserved. Nobody is looking after you. So, my lovelies, really, it's not too late to improve your quality of life with really specific and actionable lifestyle factors. Okay, again, thinking about your food, thinking about your strength. Okay, the thing that we know is that as we get older, people experience, they fall. They have a fall. A fall is not a problem in a young person because their bones are strong. A fall when you get older is a big problem and people break their hips. And so what we want to do is really think about that. We want to live, what we want to do, we want to live long but healthy lives, because a long life without your health is not much of a life at all. And I guess that's what I want to finish with, my loves. So again, you know where to find us if you want to have a look at any of our programs. If you want to connect with us, you know where we live, rlmedicine.com. You can have a look at all of our things that we do. We have got Momentum is our membership, which is currently open. The next round of the 12-week Mind-Body Rebalance isn't until February. And again, you're welcome to join the waitlist for that if you want to. But if you want to get cracking now, then come and see us at Momentum. It's great. We've got so many wonderful things that we do, including next month's offering, which is we're really looking at strength and mobility, along, of course, with a whole bunch of friends and fun. All right, gorgeous ones. Wow, I thought I was just going to come on and chat for 20 minutes, and here I am nearly half an hour. Have the most spectacular of weeks. Next week, we have a slightly famous guest. If any of you have ever read Wheat Belly, William Davis is up with us next week, and I can't wait to share our interview with you. Oh God, I've got my tongue tied. I can't wait to share my interview with him with you. Have a beautiful week, lovelies. I'll talk to you soon. Bye now. The information shared on the Real Health and Weight Loss podcast, including show notes and links, provides general information only. It is not a substitute, nor is it intended to provide individualized medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment, nor can it be construed as such. Please consult your doctor for any medical concerns.